Coming up in our next installment of America's Hope, we focus on three men who are dedicated to giving you motivation and encouragement through the power of hope. We're talking about actor Kevin Sorbo, author Cliff Shiepe, and momentum shifter C. Eric Collier. All that and more coming up on America's Hope. Good evening, I'm Kelly Wright, and welcome to America's Hope. We're glad that you could join us this hour. You know, when you look across the landscape of America, and for that matter, the world, there are many people who are quite concerned with what they have to deal with on a daily basis. Not to mention there are wars and rumors of wars going on. What that can get in your way of actually trying to live your best life now. But there's also the fact that you need to be motivated. And sometimes it's so difficult just to get out of bed and face another day. After all, faced with all the negativity that bombards you. So on this show, we like to elevate hope. We like to inspire you and inform you and give you truth and compassion and understanding by introducing you to people who have been through the best of times and the worst of times, and they still get up to live life out loud with hope. And so tonight we're going to introduce you to three people who you might find extremely interesting. They might come into your neighborhood one day through a movie, like Kevin Sorbo, the great actor, who's gone against the grain with Hollywood and has stepped out on his own to develop movies that inspire us, inform us, and give us hope. And then there's the author Cliff Shiepe, who has a remarkable book about what happens when you fall. When you fall down, how do you get back up again? He's joining us tonight. And then there's C. Eric Collier, a remarkable young man who's helping people who feel that they have no motivation. He's giving them momentum to work through the quicksand of life. All that's coming up tonight on America's Hope. Let's get started. And so welcome to America's Hope. My first guest is someone who knows about motivating you to be the best that you can be, living your best life now. You know how I like to say good, better, best, never let it rest. Take your good and make it better, make your better best. Eric Collier is a high energy, high impact keynote speaker, authentically helping individuals unlock their potential and break through barriers so they can create a life-changing momentum shift that leads to turning the impossible into possible. And Eric knows and understands the importance of momentum shifts and accredits them to improving his own life while inspiring his mission to create a movement that helps others shift their momentum in their lives as well. Eric, thanks for joining us right now. Eric Collier, good to see you. You're joining us from the Maryland area, some place that I'm familiar with because that's my home area in Maryland. But welcome to America's Hope. Look, when you started this program to try to help people become their better selves, what motivated you to motivate them?
Well, first, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. But I'm somebody who was stuck, and I ran into somebody who woke me up. And from that moment on, realizing that I had what it took to accomplish some dreams, some goals that I wanted to accomplish, that changed the game for me. And I want everybody to feel that experience. I want everybody to wake up and go, you know what? It's all on me. If I just put the work in, some things can change. I'm a big believer that the largest gap we all face is the gap between where we are now and what we could become. And when you realize that it takes you getting in the game, stepping your performance up, and just taking action, things will start changing for you. And that's why I do what I do. I want people to win.
You know, you said something very key, though. You said that someone saw you in your moment of being stuck and helped you
Yes.
get unstuck to become more productive. So I got to ask you, what's the sticking point that kept you stuck?
Oh, well, when I met the gentleman, it was the night where he was just going to introduce us to his home-based business. And all I was trying to do was get him out of the house. I really wasn't interested. I've seen him before. And so when I'm trying to get him out the house, he just turns to me and he says, "Let me ask you a question." And I'm like, "Okay, go ahead." And it's only going to be no. But he asked me three questions that just shook me. And if you think about these questions real quick, the first question was, what have you done over the last 5 years of your life that has gotten you closer to accomplishing your dreams or significantly increasing your income? And it was at that moment I wasn't doing anything. I was, oh God, it's Monday. Thank God it's Friday. Let's party, enjoy the weekend, and start the whole routine over again. And so he says, well, if you haven't done anything the last 5 years, what are you doing now to change things? Again, that was easy. I was about to do the same thing I've always done. So nothing. And so he said, well, if you keep doing the same things, what do you think your life would look like over the next 5, 10, or 15 years? And that's when it really hit me because he didn't know at the time that I was about to lose everything. My wife, somebody I fell in love with the moment she walked into the door, was about to leave me. And with her,
Mm.
there was a possibility of losing my three children. And I remember that day my son was born. I told him, I said, you'll never have to worry about anybody else taking care of you. I'm your father. I'll always be here. You'll never have to worry about calling anybody daddy but me. And so that was a huge eye opener for me because I was playing small and I knew I had to make some changes and it something inside of me shook and I quickly said, how do we change this? And so from that moment on, I started to change. I started working on myself. But here's the kicker. And I've labeled myself the mental quicksand expert simply for this reason. Even though you decide to change, it doesn't mean it happens overnight. It takes a while. And the reason why I was so stuck up in here in my mind in disbelieving all the talents and skills I had, I only thought I had athletics. And when my dream to play Major League Baseball was gone, I didn't think I had it intellectually. I didn't think I had mentally to be able to stand in a room and help others. I knew I wanted to do it, but it took me a while.
Do you think Americans have gotten away from helping each other the way that they should to pull them from the quagmire that they're in or the
I
quicksand?
think that I think there are times when that happens, but then there are the times where, like I was so bad I couldn't even reach up and take the help that was being offered to me.
Ah,
So I
yeah.
think it's two sided, and but we definitely have to reach out and look at like I mentor and coach high school students, and I remember when I told a friend of mine, this is what I'm doing. He looked at me, and he goes, "Man, that's too late. They're in high school. They're done." And I'm thinking, you can't give up on people. You there's somebody out there who's looking for help, and they're going to be able to realize that you're there to help them, and then they'll take it and they'll move forward in their life. But you can't give up on people because of their age, what they look like, where they come from. Somebody out there needs you. And I think when you look at life, I love what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. He said, you know what, I believe we'll get to the promised land. He said, I may not get there with you, but we'll get there. So what that tells me is my job is to just start the momentum shift. My job is to reach out there and help others, get that ball rolling. And hey, when I'm gone, somebody else will pick it up and move forward. But my job is to at least get it started. That's what I was put on this earth to do.
You know, I love how you unpack that because that shows that leaders and motivators also have to do it from an unselfish point of view. That you have to get out of the way in order to help someone find the way, and that requires a lot of self-awareness, but also being able to take yourself out of the equation so that you can help them discover who they are. That's brilliantly done, and I like the fact that you point out that age doesn't matter because, yeah, it's true to reach young kids to make sure they don't become broken men and women. But if they are broken men and women, you don't give up on them, right? You keep
Right.
helping them.
Right. I look at the time in high school. I come from a blended family. My parents split when I was 4. And in high school, we were dealing with living in my father's house, bouncing back and forth from my father's house, who had remarried, and bouncing back and forth from my mother's house, who had remarried. And we're battling for our place in there. And we're trying to get our parents to realize, that we matter. And they were struggling with finding themselves. So they were caught up in different things. And it just felt like we were outsiders. In fact, it got to the point where somebody had to leave and it was always us. So it's a challenge to reach out to students and let them know, hey man, look, we all go through things and it doesn't matter where you're at now. You can work through them, but I think the biggest thing we got to overcome are those mental barriers to success
Mm.
that block us from really achieving that best version of us that we're out here to create.
Eric, you've helped a lot of people What is it that you're currently doing? Are you talking to students? Are you talking to adults? Everybody who is in need of that extra push to hold on to becoming stronger and better and getting to from impossible to possible.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely. I'm working with the high school students. I've worked with high school students in the Prince George's County and Baltimore City public schools over the last 4 years, and I've helped career professionals as well. And I just talk to everybody. One of the compliments I've gotten, well, first, I have a nickname, and it was given to me, the mayor. But a friend of mine actually watched me because I connect with people so well. I love connecting with people. And he added the mayor of motivation. So I'm the mayor of motivation, but I talk to everybody. And I had an individual who stopped me in the hallway one day. He just said, "Look, I thank you because you have got to be the nicest person in the building who nobody else has ever stops and asks me my day, and it really helps me out." But I believe that we've got to connect with others. We've got to speak to others because you never know what a person is going through. And I think it gives them a chance to break up the monotony of their day and to talk about something that they really love, whether it be their family, a hobby that they have, an event they attended. But it gets the load off of their chest, gets their mind off of the stress, and it just helps. And so that's something that I do all the time. So I work to coach. I coach Little League Baseball as well. And I just love coaching and training and helping people. I have my podcast, the Momentum Shift podcast and radio show that airs on Spotify, Apple, and Google, and Envision Broadcasting. I love that because now I get to highlight other people who have created momentum shifts in their life and they help them use their tips and messages to help others as well. So I just try to find platforms where I can help others.
You know, Eric, people are bombarded with so much negativity in the news and in life itself, and what you're doing is counter. It's like a hope counterattack that you're
Yeah.
meeting them in the midst of their crisis. There's a statement that you made once called, "When it comes to reaching our goals and making the impossible our new reality, low-level effort will not produce high-level results." You got to talk to me about that. I love that statement.
It's so true. We want some of these things. Like when we look at that mountain, we want to be on top of that mountain that we've got to climb and stand up there and look up there and enjoy the world at a different pace. But so many people will look up at that mountain and see the difficulty, and they'll walk away thinking it's too hard, too tough, and they won't put the effort in. Then there are those who will look at the mountain in the eyes of others who've raised them or who taught them, and they'll set goals to achieve only what they believe or what they've been told is possible for them, and they'll climb that mountain and they'll get to a certain level and there they'll stay stagnant. But it's those who believe that the high level effort that I put in will create the high level results I want to accomplish and put me at the top of that mountain where I introduce myself to the best version of me. Ah, man,
Wow.
you can achieve so many things.
You got to have faith to do it too, Eric. You know, you can't do it
Yes, sir.
without faith. You guys have faith, hope, and love, and hope is the glue that keeps the faith and the love together. How do you work that?
Wow, sir, I can tell you that didn't come into play really until I really understood that until the day I was laid off. And I went to 352 days of being laid off. I couldn't get back to work because in my environment,
Yeah.
once your credit is shot, it's tough to get you in the building. And but I took on a mindset. I told my wife, we're not gonna worry about these bill collectors and these bills coming through. They're not taking the house. We're gonna be fine. But I just said, look, every time something would happen, I said, I just look up and I go, thank you for the opportunity and challenges to make me better. And I knew God had me. And that's the biggest thing that has really helped me because when I looked at the opportunity and challenges that He was giving me to become better, you realize that you got to go through the storms to get to become your best version of you. It don't come easy. My mom used to always tell me, she said, Eric, nothing comes easy in life. You're going to have to work for it. So I'm willing to put the work in. Whatever challenges come my way, I look at them and say, hey, there's an opportunity on the other side. What is it? And I think that's a big, important step that we got to take is to be able to have the faith that we're being put into this moment for a great outcome.
So I got to ask you, my final question is, what's your hope for America?
I hope for America is that we see each other and we love each other. It's a difficult challenge because of where you come from. But you got to look at the person that you're seeing in front of you and realize that they're human. They breathe air just like you. They bleed just like you. I've been in the military, and my whole purpose is just to defend the rights of others and to help others have the opportunities that they deserve. And so I think that's important that we look at other people and realize, hey, I think the biggest thing had over this time is working with people from different countries and realizing just that we all have the same challenges that we face, but we all, like I said, deserve the opportunity for a better place.
Eric, thank you so much. And you mentioned that you served in the military, so thank you for your service to this country. But more
You're
importantly,
welcome.
thank you
Thank
for your service to humanity. Eric Collier, veteran personal improvement specialist and certified facilitator. Eric, how can people get in touch with you for speaking and for coaching?
The best place to get in touch with me is the number one momentumshift.com. That's my website, the number one momentumshift.com. And you can find me. I'm on TikTok as well as C. Eric Collier, as well as Instagram and Facebook as the Momentum Shift podcast and radio show, and C. Eric Collier.
See, Eric Collier, thank you, man. Much love to you. God bless you. Keep helping those
Thank you,
students,
sir.
teachers, athletes, veterans, and all those career professionals in overcoming their obstacles. Thank you, man.
I will. Thank you for the opportunity. Enjoy.
All right. Coming up next, we're talking to author extraordinaire Cliff Shiepe. That's next. And welcome back to America's Hope. You know, we've had authors on this program before, and many of them have always exemplified stories about hope. Our next author and guest is no exception. The book is called Cliff Falls, a novel by C.B. Shiepe, and he's here to join us today. And it says, what happens when you run into everything you've been running from? This is the book. This is the man, the author who created it. And you know, I'm first of all, thank you for joining us on the show today, Cliff. It says here that you reach a broad audience that resonates with readers who have gone over the falls in their own lives. Let's start right there, going over the falls in your own life, because as you know, people spiral out of control, circumstances happen, and they fall and hit rock bottom. Yeah. Your book addresses that?
Yeah, the metaphor of Cliff Falls, going over the falls in life. We come to the end of ourselves. And this doesn't just happen when we've done something that we shouldn't do or we're not living the way we should. Very often, wonderful people just encounter life situations that separate them from everything they've put their identity in. And it questions their sense of self, their sense of purpose, their ability to exist. And the first line of the book is, it's one thing to believe in something when you don't need it to be true. It's another when everything's riding on it. And if you think about that, I personally went through a health crisis when I was younger. And I was isolated for a period of years. And this book is the fruit of that. But I was separated from everything I put my identity in. And it's a scary place to be.
Yeah, you talk about what we put our identity in. And I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times, especially with social media, we see a lot of young people and even older people, let's be honest, who place their identity in what they put on their social media pages. Yeah. And in some cases, it's incongruent with who they really are, but they're trying to live up to an identity. How do we get around that and over that before it bursts and crushes us?
Probably two ways of answering that. First of all, life will do that for you. There's a point,
no doubt about that.
You know,
life
will do that for you. And you, but the second way of answering that question is, it really gets to the heart of how we give and receive love, how we gain love. And we build these identities, and even on good things, right? And we get praise and feel valued. But that's different than answering the question, who am I apart from all of that? Who am I apart from all that? I speak to people all across this country, people in recovery, people with histories of physical abuse, sexual abuse. Their whole sense of self has been rocked. And when you've experienced that isolation, I know when I went through my health crisis, friends kind of fell away because we didn't quite have answers. And when you're isolated, there was nothing I could point to justify my existence. To say, I should be on this planet. I have worth and value.
When someone's at that state, there's an emptiness that's there. How or what filled that vacant hole that you felt because of one being ill, not really knowing what's wrong with you? It's a health crisis. Your friends have abandoned you because, oh my God, we don't know what's wrong with him. Let's not touch him. We just don't know. It might be, we might catch it.
Yeah.
So how do you catch yourself in the midst of the fall?
Yeah. I think the number one priority is not trying to catch yourself. It's
Letting yourself go?
Letting yourself go.
And
Coming to the end of yourself.
And trusting in who or what to help you and save you.
Yeah. If you think about the falls, you go over the falls and then underneath and the confusion and trying to reemerge and float further downstream, you're being separated from all these things that you held on to. And a lot of those things were good. A lot of those things are people who were in your life, jobs, things you were known for. But I asked the question, who are you apart from all that? And that's the heart of this book.
That's the heart of it, yeah.
Everyone was created in God's image and has value and worth simply by existing. Simply by existing.
Yeah.
And anything we do that's good is just a response to that love. So from a faith perspective, it's a little bit like, this, light that's on me now. It says, Scripture says we were loved first. The light's coming towards us, and we bask in it, we receive in it. Anything we do is a response to that. We can turn away and hate ourselves. But that light's not going away. That's a choice. It's a choice to believe you are the beloved of God. It's a truth, but it's a choice.
And because it's a choice, if you take ownership of it and make that choice, it becomes intentional that you serve that light in order to live that light and shine that light in your own darkness.
This is a great embarrassing story that I tell because it's so helpful. In the middle of that health crisis, when I was so isolated and I'm back at my parents' house, I had this full life. I was working at Disney. I was acting a little bit, had some roles. This whole life, and now I'm isolated, right? And years went by and I was getting irritable, coming to the end of myself. And one day I heard my mom at the end of the hallway and she's like, "Cliff, can I come in?" I'm like, "What?" She opened the door and she had a cake. A lit cake with streamers. And I'm like, "What is this? This is not my birthday." She goes, "Don't you know what today is?" I'm like, "Mom, what is today?" She goes, "Today's your pity party."
Oh.
She threw me a pity party. It was the smartest thing she could have ever done. She said, "For the next hour, we're going to eat cake and we're going to talk about what a bad rap this is. How the people who you were there for aren't there for you, how you were the good kid and you still got sick. And then I'm going to kick you in the pants and we're going to start working the problem." So from a practical standpoint, so many people won't move on and do what they can do until someone in the land of the living acknowledges what has happened.
So here on America's Hope, we're going to start having pity parties for people.
Tanya, fantastic.
I love
probably
it.
ate
Look,
the
I
whole
want to
cake.
talk to you a little bit more about you, Cliff, and about your life. I'm talking to Cliff Shiepe. The book is Cliff Falls. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to America's Hope. So again, the book is called Cliff Falls. It's a novel. It's a novel that you want to get a hold of because, as Bobby Schuller of the Hour of Power says, can a novel heal your image of God and yourself? Cliff Falls has the potential to do just that. Flavored by remarkable wit, this adventure will nourish your soul. It is that good. And then Amy Grant The Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter says, ditto to what Bobby said. Thank you for a palpable, gritty experience of redemption. So real, art reflecting life. Well done. Cliff Shiepe is the author of this wonderful novel that is bringing people a lot of hope, a lot of faith, and a lot of love. I like those three words, faith, hope, and love. And the greatest, of course, being love. If you learn to love yourself, I don't want to give your novel away, but what's the person going through in this novel?
I think the main character is a former child star, and he has just been exploited, right? Every relationship was monetized as a child, and he just feels used. And so all he knows is what he doesn't want, and that's so true of so many of us. You ask somebody what they want, and they will tell you all the things they don't want. They don't want to be hurt.
Yeah.
They don't want to be taken advantage of. They don't want to be alone. And we have to get to the point where we can say, well, what do we want, and what does that look like? And love is a difficult thing because you don't feel you want it, but you don't feel like you can control it because you can't control other people. My mom said to me, when I was saying, where are all my friends, right? Who weren't there for me. And she said, Cliff, just because you're the one who's sick and going through something, don't assume this is only your test. This is a test for everyone who was in your life. And I think that's so true. There's a narcissism that can settle in when you go over the falls in life. Because it's all about you, trying to get well, trying to fix it. Woe is me. And even, my new mindset and how I'm going to turn things around. It's
Nobody know the trouble I sing.
Exactly. And I think of the blind man in the Bible when they were trying to trap Jesus in an intellectual argument.
Yeah.
And they said, why is this man blind? Is it because of his sins or the sins of his parents?
Yeah.
Kelly, I bet that man asked that question every day of his life. Am I cursed?
Absolutely, going through the self-examination process, yeah.
And what did Jesus say? He said, neither. This man was made blind so he could be healed in this moment, and he healed him.
I think your visit to America's Hope to the show is very timely, because America, as you know, has been going through quite a bit of identity crisis, because we get caught up in our identity. And then we often get confused about what our identity as a nation is. Oh, we're a great nation. No, make us better. Make us great again. Well, I'd rather be Republican. No, I'd rather be Democrat. No, I'd rather be liberal. No, I'd rather be conservative. How about just being one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? Oh, and by the way, shine some light and be that beacon of hope that the world is often counting on. But lately, because of what we've seen going on with wars and rumors of wars, we've begun to question our identity all the more because we're going through those falls.
At the root of that for me is shame.
Shame from
the difference between doing something bad and then believing you yourself are bad. I spoke at the Betty Ford Center, and 4 days before, I still hadn't written my talk. And I'm speaking to addicts in the middle of detox.
Yeah.
They had actors perform scenes from my novel. It was a big thing. And I'm like, they're in that place. I really want to reach them. I went to this pizza place where I grew up, and there was a kid that was there who hadn't been there in like 4 or 5 months. And I'm like, Rob, where have you been? And he looked down at me, and he looked up, and he said, Cliff, I just got out of the Betty Ford Center. I'm like, what? I'm speaking there in 4 days. And then he said this to me. He goes, Cliff, I just don't get it. After all this, I still don't get it. What don't you get? How do you not hate yourself? And we spoke about the difference between doing something bad and then beginning to believe you yourself are bad, innately bad, without redemption. To take that from your setup with what's happening nationally, it's an identity crisis where we have voices saying America, our country, who we are, is innately bad without redemption.
Mm-hmm.
And not owning realities of evils, and it's a more perfect union, and owning the past and moving, but we're not innately evil without redemption.
Rather than coming from a place of shame or guilt, come from a place of hope and redemption. I like your novel, and I like what your message is, because your message is one of hope over despair.
Yeah.
So on this program, Cliff, what would be your message to America about this wonderful gift of life that we have, individually and collectively as a nation? For such a time as this, by the way.
Yeah. Wow. There are different ways I could answer that. What I would say is, you have permission to be proud of who you are and where you live, and those who've gone before you. I mean, oh yes, people who have sacrificed, the greatest generation, military, but I'm also thinking of the grandmothers who raised kids and served in the churches, and the people who had blue-collar jobs and were another father to a kid who didn't have a father and were in the community. All these people went before us, and we didn't just arrive here now. I said to you earlier off camera that I speak to groups all the time, some that are really conservative and living in LA, some that are very woke and liberal. And people are like, are you a chameleon? How do you? I'm like, no. I go, the key is, I don't speak to them as conservatives or liberals. I speak to them as parents, grandparents. I always say, who are you afraid of right now? Who are you afraid isn't going to make it? Yeah. A son, a daughter? All of us lose sleep over someone we care about and love. And if we could have the answer to point them just in a direction, we would. And when I speak to people that way, they respond to me that way. The answer isn't political, even though politics play a role in it, right?
Right.
But ultimately, this book is understanding your identity as a beloved child of God.
There you go.
As I said, we're all created in God's image. I'm not saying everyone's life is pleasing to God or everybody goes to heaven. I'm not making that kind of but we have value and worth simply by existing.
Cliff, thank you, man. Thank you for being on the program,
Pleasure.
America's Hope. Welcome back to America's Hope. So I'm joined now by actor Kevin Sorbo. Before I bring him on, let me tell you about his new film. He's starring in a new film inspired by a true story. It's called Miracle in East Texas. It comes to theaters nationwide this Sunday and Monday, October 29th and 30th. Kevin is also the director and co-producer of the award-winning comedy that is entertaining for the entire family, which means you got to go see it. The film also stars Louis Gossett Jr., John Ratzenberger, Sam Sorbo, Kevin's wife, and joining me now is Kevin Sorbo. Kevin, welcome to America's Hope. I'm delighted to have you on.
Good to be there. There's a little bit of the poster right there.
Go ahead, put it all there. That's good. Miracle in East Texas. I love it. Look at there.
SorboStudios.com right there and check it out. That's the poster for the movie. It's a wonderful, wonderful PG-rated movie. I get stopped all the time, used because of my series Hercules and Andromeda. Most people now stop me at airports, hotel lobbies, and they say, hey, I love Soul Surfer, What If, God's Not Dead, and Let There Be Light. Make more movies like that. We're making them, but we need you people to support these things. We don't have a $100 million advertising budget like they do for these crazy secular movies coming out of Hollywood. We need word of mouth, and these are wonderful family movies. These are movies that made me want to be an actor that Hollywood used to do. Well, I'm doing them now, movies that have hope and love and faith and redemption and just, well, I'll say hope again, because, boy, we're needing hope more than anything in our world right now. So I hope people get out there and see this movie. They go to SorboStudios.com. They can sign up. We only get 2 days. 2 days. If we fill up those theaters this Sunday and Monday, we'll get more days. So please fill this thing up right now. These are really good family movies.
Absolutely. And Kevin, I love the line. I was reading the film synopsis, and I love the line that says, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. So based on that, what's Miracle in East Texas all about?
Well, it's a true story set in 1930. I'm always attracted to true stories. I'm going to give it a little quick nod to Dan Gordon. Dan Gordon wrote this movie. He's an Oscar-nominated writer. He wrote The Hurricane for Denzel Washington, White Earp, Kevin Costner. He's just an amazing, amazing writer. He brought the script to me. I fell in love with it right away. And it's about two con men, played by myself and John Ratzenberger, that went through Oklahoma and Texas, wooing widows out of their money on fake oil wells. They would sell 500% of the shares. They would declare a dry hole, go on to the next town. Totally by accident, they strike oil in East Texas, in Kilgore, Texas, largest oil find in the history of the world. So it was right there during the Depression of 1930, made that community very, very wealthy, and those surrounding people. They, of course, get arrested because of they couldn't pay back 500%. So they get, during their court trial, all the widows that they conned through Oklahoma and Texas show up at the jury, at the trial. And while they're waiting sentencing, a man comes in to buy up all the worthless shares, pay back all the widows that we ripped off, made them all very wealthy, made himself incredibly wealthy. And the last name of this guy was Hunt. And people may know the history of the Hunt family. In fact, the two sons of this man are the ones who own the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's a true story. And in further investigation on it, it was the oil from this oil find 10 years later that helped supply all the oil for all the Allies, including Americans, of course, in Europe during World War II. And Winston Churchill said, when all the Germans ran out, because we had them totally surrounded with the Russians and all the other Allies, he said that it was East Texas oil that won the war.
That's an incredible story. That's why people have got to go. They've got to go see this film, and what a backstory to that as well. Kevin, I'm grateful that you produce this kind of film and more films. In fact, you and your wife Sam, who co-stars in the film with you, both of you are on a mission to fight back against liberal Hollywood by creating, as you stated, inspirational, positive films through Sorbo Studios. What inspired you to take this leap of faith in producing films that actually elevate hope?
Well, it really started with me back in 2010. I did a movie called What If? And I've shot over 80 movies. And in my mind, What If, same writers that did God's Not Dead. God's Not Dead was a huge hit. But in my mind, What If is a far better movie. But this is the problem we have with independent movies. How do you get them out there? We don't have that big budget to put a commercial in every football game and every sitcom on TV. So we got to rely on word of mouth. God's Not Dead was an anomaly. That $2 million movie made $140 million. So What If to me is a better one, but that really got me going. It's a wonderful, and ironically, it's John Ratzenberger in that movie with me again. He plays an angel that's come down to show me the road that God intended me to walk on, even though I like the road I'm on. It's sort of like it's a reverse It's a Wonderful Life. But it was directed by Dallas Jenkins, who's doing quite well with a thing called The Chosen. And that really got the road going for me to want to do more of these movies. So I've done that with God's Not Dead and Soul Surfer and Let There Be Light. My most recent one in theaters last January was Left Behind, Rise of the Antichrist, based on the Left Behind books written by Dallas's father, Jerry Jenkins. So I kind of went full circle with that. But, Hollywood used to do these kind of movies. You see the movies they're doing now. I mean, Andrew Breitbart said it years ago. Andrew's a dear friend of our families before he passed. And he's the one who said politics runs downstream from culture. Who runs the culture? Mm-hmm. Well, Hollywood does. Mainstream media does. And Walt Disney said back in the 1950s, movies and television will influence our youth. Well, I think Walt was right 70 years ago, because you see what's going on now, let alone what the public education is doing out there. So to me, this is sort of my battle cry, to do movies that Hollywood used to do, movies that had hope in them, had redemption, had the good guy winning.
What kind of backlash did you receive from Hollywood or the Hollywood elites in terms of you expressing your faith in God and your Christian beliefs?
Well, being a conservative and also being a Christian in Hollywood is like being a double leper, I mean, it's just really amazing to me. When my manager and agent pretty much said that we can't get you work anymore, no one wants to work with you. And I said, really, no one wants to work with me? Or is it just you guys don't want to work with me? But after all these years of working with them, we parted ways. And I didn't get angry about it. I kind of laughed about it. I said, the hypocrisy is unbelievably blatant, not only in Hollywood, certainly across Washington, D.C. as well, where, they say one thing, but they do everything the opposite way. But I said, you guys believe in tolerance. You scream for tolerance and freedom of speech, but as we know, it's a one-way street. And to me, I don't harbor that kind of anger and hatred if somebody has a different point of view. Hollywood was a pretty conservative place up until the 1960s. You look at the Warner brothers that started Warner Studios. They were Jewish, and they're completely conservative. But the world has changed, and again, once again, it's just. I think it was Brezhnev when he was the president over there in Russia. He said, "We don't have to bring communism to you; you'll bring it to yourselves." And they were completely right, because you see it happening right now. JFK. I tell my liberal friends, look at JFK's inauguration speech in 1960. Just check it out online. Tell me if there's any Democrat who speaks that way today. He'd be conservative today. So, here we are.
But you came to worldwide fame for starring in Hercules, the #1 show around the world. The success created young Hercules with Ryan Gosling. But look, while you were filming Hercules, many people are not aware of this. You suffered an aneurysm that led to several strokes, and it took you 3 years for you to learn how to walk again and regain your vision. Talk to me about the ordeal of having gone through that type of health scare, holding on to your faith and making it through that precarious experience.
Well, I think just the hours I had in Hercules. I lived in New Zealand 7 years filming that series. I think the hours I had, I was pretty much 18 hours door to door, counting the drive time and all the working out and being on set. I was pretty much in every scene. I did every fight scene because my ego said I could. I enjoyed doing it. It was fun. I'm an old jock playing football and basketball growing up through school and everything. So, it wasn't 3 years. It was 3 years to fully recover. But I was having problems with my left arm. I couldn't figure what was going on in my shoulder, and my fingers were numb and cold. Ended up being an aneurysm. They'd been spitting clots slowly, but down to my arm over months. But once it opened up completely, it sent a series of clots in my brain. It took me 4 months to really learn how to walk and balance again. But even then, it was unsteady. But it was I looked like a drunken guy at first. I couldn't get out of bed. I was falling down. I mean, the dizziness, the vertigo, everything. The sight, the speech, all these things I had to fight to get back. I think psychologically it was just as big a damage as physical, because here I was 6'3", 230 pounds, about 7% body fat. I was pretty ripped up and in great shape. And to have something that happened to me, I felt like I was Hercules. I felt I was indestructible. But I learned quickly that I'm not, that I'm just a mere mortal. And I wrote a book. It's called True Strength, My Journey from Hercules, the Mere Mortal, and How Nearly Dying Saved My Life. And it really changed my life in a lot of ways. And putting that book out, which I didn't want to put out, my wife Sam bugged me to do it. It really, it opened the door to speaking events for me, which I never thought I'd be doing. I do about 15 speaking events a year across the country. And whether it's pro-life or Christian education or motivational or health related, the book has been a godsend, because people come up to me all the time and say, your book has saved my life. Your book made me stop feeling sorry for myself. It's not a book that is a downer. It's an upper. Things happen to us. We all have a story to tell. We're all going to have roadblocks in front of us. God never promised any of us an easy life. How do you get past these roadblocks? How do you fight back and find a way to find the courage to do what you got to do in life to make yourself a better person?
Look, you and your wife, you talk about Sam, you have co-authored True Faith, Embracing Adversity to Live in God's Light and Share the Light. What do you jointly seek to do in this book? And I find it fascinating, actually, that you're doing this.
Well, God never promised any of us an easy life. We're always going to have obstacles in our way. What do you do to get past them? We were having all kinds of problems getting pregnant, and all kinds of other issues within the marriage. And really, we were in love with each other, but the reality is we wanted kids really badly. And we have 3 now. Thank God. They're all gifts from God. They're all ours. But it was a long road. But there's also other things within the marriage became, people will say, they have the same problems that we've had in our marriage. Well, here we are 25 years later, we're still together. We work together as an amazing team, and we function together as an amazing team. We're homeschool advocates. My wife speaks across the country in homeschooling. Once again, sorbostudios.com not only leads you to seeing about the Brave book, but also seeing about my movie, Miracle in Texas. It's got all of Sam's information, all mine. I have 4 more movies in post-production. I got 2 documentaries coming out next year. You and I need to talk about the one before Easter. It deals with the Last Supper. It's called Eating with the Enemy. It's an amazing documentary.
Excellent.
Look at the Last Supper. And, I'm just very fortunate to keep busy with doing the things I want to do.
I got to ask you a question. Is hope a hard sell in Hollywood and news?
It is. You look at our government's favorite weapon and media's favorite weapon is fear. We're only supposed to fear God. It's in the Bible. And I understand it's easy to get fearful, but we let it control our lives. I think most things that we worry about, most things people fret about, never happen. It's like wasted energy. It's negative energy. It's not healthy for your body whatsoever to put all this fear and anxiety into it. And whatever reasons, I think the independent market is more interested in selling the idea of hope, the idea of laughter, the idea of redemption. And they just don't want to do it in Hollywood, and I don't know why.
I got to ask you one final question, but first,
Sure.
I got to know about that sword. Is that the sword from Hercules?
This was on the very, very last day of 7 years of filming. This is the sword my props department gave me. It's got the dates. It's got 1993 to 2000 on there. It says, that the journey may be over, but the legend lives on. They inscripted on there, so it's pretty cool.
That's good.
And,
that's good.
My whole crew went on to work on Lord of the Rings, so they all went up winning Oscars and Academy Awards.
Wow,
So.
that's awesome. Okay, so my final question, my real question is, what is your hope for America?
Hope that we wake up. Hope that we don't let people set our limitations, especially ourselves. I think people need to let like you said, let the lion roar, and the silent majority is, guys, it's bad out there right now, and we got a lot of evil in our own country as well, and we got to start taking care of our country. I say people need to not be afraid is what it comes down to. Speak up.
Yeah. Keep letting the light shine, Kevin. Love you, man.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless. Thanks.
All right. We're back with my final word in just a moment. And welcome back to America's Hope. I'd like to thank our guest who appeared on tonight's program, Kevin Sorbo. Make sure you check out his film. It's called Miracle in East Texas. Starts this weekend, Sunday and Monday. Check it out. It's for the family. You'll love it. And I'd also like to thank C. Eric Collier and Cliff Shiepe. My final word tonight, based on what we heard these three guests say this evening, is that it's important to exercise faith, to overcome doubt, have hope over despair, and certainly, by any means necessary, make sure you have love outperforming hate. Have a great weekend, everybody. Until Monday, God bless you. Good night. Your America and my America.
United we stand, divided